Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Here every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Night was slowly falling on the industrial town of Saint Revel, enveloping its streets in a heavy grayish veil. The sky was slowly fading, giving way to the first timid stars, while the red brick buildings, remnants of a prosperous era, cast long, menacing shadows. The air, laden with a light mist mixed with the metallic scent of the nearby abandoned factory, gave the neighborhood an almost unreal atmosphere, as if suspended between past and present. In this neighborhood, forgotten on tourist maps, where the tired shop windows had remained unlit for months, only a few failing neon lights attempted to resist the darkness. Their pale, intermittent glow flickered on the peeling facades, reflecting off the puddles left by the afternoon rain. The streetlights, also tired, regularly broke down, sometimes plunging the street into almost total darkness. It was in this strange and heavy atmosphere that the neighborhood's young hooligans had gathered. There they were, standing in small groups, their eyes wary and their breath visible in the cool evening air. These boys, no older than Adrian himself, had forged their reputations in street brawls, street robberies, and repeated provocations. They ruled this corner of Saint Revel like fallen kings, constantly seeking to impose their law through fear and violence. Their leader, Max, a boy with an angular face and hard eyes, was known for his explosive temper and his total lack of mercy. Tonight, their attention was fixed on a newcomer, a quiet boy most had never even noticed. Adrien. At 22, he wasn't the loud or provocative type. He had just moved into a small, dilapidated apartment right next to the old, closed factory, far from the neighborhood's usual youth circles. Adrien often went unnoticed, walking alone, his hands stuffed in the pockets of his worn jacket, his head bowed, avoiding the gaze of passers-by. Yet beneath this apparent calm lurked another reality, a very different story. Adrien was no ordinary boy. Since childhood, he had lived in gyms, surrounded by the sweat and discipline of kickboxing. His body and mind had been shaped by years of rigorous training, in clubs where every fight was a battle for survival. He had left this past behind, hoping for a more peaceful life in Saint Revel, but tonight, he would have to rekindle it. After a long day spent storing sports equipment in the downtown store, Adrien had gotten into the habit of stopping at the local cafe. A modest place, frequented by regulars with often harsh looks, where he always silently ordered the same black coffee. Tonight, he left the cafe, tired in every step, his shoulders slightly hunched, his hands buried deep in his pockets. As he stepped into an alleyway lined with graffiti-covered walls, a raucous laugh suddenly erupted, shattering the emerging calm. The sound, harsh and mocking, echoed against the bricks, catching Adrien's attention. "Hey, new guy!" a raspy voice called out, sharp as a blade. Max, the group's leader, stepped forward, his piercing eyes fixed on Adrien. "Do you think you can walk around here without anyone looking at you?"
Adrien's gas slowly rose, meeting más defiant gas.
Around them, the other hooligans were closing in, forming a suffocating circle, their silhouettes looming menacingly in the darkness.
"So, what's your thing?"
Joris, another of the group, asked, a smirk on his lips, pointing mockingly at Adrien's athletic build. "Do you play sports? Are you going to show us?" Adrien lowered his head slightly, his features impassive, frozen in a sort of almost eerie calm. Yet his heart beat faster, resonating in his chest like a war drum. Every fiber of his being had prepared for this moment. He had learned in moments like these, not to give in to fear, to maintain control at all costs. Max took a step forward, his hard face coming close to Adrien's, his eyes shining with a mixture of arrogance and provocation. "Come on, show us what you've got," he said, his voice low and menacing. A heavy silence suddenly fell over the alley, as if time itself were holding its breath. The mocking laughter had died down, replaced by feverish anticipation. The hooligans' gazes, previously confident and defiant, now flickered between surprise and apprehension. Then, without warning, Adrien pivoted slightly and adopted the combat guard he had perfected over the years, in those stifling rooms where bodies hardened to pain and blows. His hands rose, ready to strike or parry, his feet firmly planted on the uneven floor of the alley, his muscles tense like ropes ready to release in an explosion of controlled power. The air around him seemed to vibrate with a new momentum, a calm but undeniably powerful energy. He sized up his opponents with a cold, precise gaze, spotting the slightest flaws, the moments when their postures wavered. The first blow came, swift and precise, a side kick executed with disconcerting fluidity. Adrian's leg shot out, sharp, and struck Eurus's side, who hadn't expected such speed. The force of the blow made him stagger backward, surprise written all over his face. A murmur of disbelief rippled through the circle. The other hooligans, accustomed to imposing their will through brute force and numbers, were unsettled by Adrian's poise, his almost icy calm in the midst of the storm. Without missing a beat, Adrian unleashed his attacks. Smooth dodges, precise movements, swift and methodical blows. Each attack was calculated, each defense fluid, like a dance where each gesture carried the power of a mastered art. He never struck harder than necessary. His movements were the perfect blend of technique and efficiency. The confused hooligans tried to retaliate, but their attacks crashed against an invisible wall. Their blows simply flew through empty space, missing the target every time. Adrian seemed to read their intentions, anticipate their actions even before they executed them. "Shit!" Max exclaimed, taking a step back, his tone betraying a mixture of fear and frustration. "Looks like we've stepped in the path of a pro." Adrian's breathing was rapid but controlled. His chest rose and fell with measure, his eyes remained sharp and piercing. Then, in a calm, firm voice, he spoke. "I don't look for trouble," he said slowly, his words echoing in the cool night. "But here, I won't let anyone disrespect me." Silence returned, but this time it was charged with a completely different tension. It was no longer fear of combat, but a mute recognition that hung in the air. The hooligans, still in shock, slowly backed away, realizing that this quiet boy was not easy prey, but a formidable opponent. Max, the leader, finally nodded, a slight resigned smile lighting up his face, marked by the ordeal.
"Not bad, kiddo. You've got guts, punto."
Adrian nodded in return, the tension slowly easing from his shoulders. He knew that last night had changed everything. Saint Revel was no longer just a grey, threatening town. It had become his turf, his territory to defend. And he intended to earn respect there, not through fear, nor through gratuitous violence, but through the quiet strength and self-control of someone who knows where he comes from and what he is worth. The story of that night had quickly spread like wildfire through the alleys and workshops of Saint Revel. The quiet boy whom people passed by without paying attention, the newcomer with a calm and collected demeanor, was no longer the anonymous face that no one noticed. Now, in smoky cafes, tired neon bars, and even on public benches in squares, his name circulated in hushed tones, mixed with admiration and caution. Some saw him as a symbol, a quiet force capable of pushing back violence through the sheer power of his self-control. Others, more wary, feared this new aura, wondering if this apparent calm did not hide a storm ready to sweep everything away. But Adrian didn't change. He continued his life with the same rigor, the same fragile balance between work and passion. By day, he devoted himself seriously to his job at the sports store, guiding customers with a discreet smile, avoiding conflict, as if he were trying to leave behind the echo of raised fists. In the evening, he returned to the neighborhood kickboxing gym, a modest place, its walls covered in faded posters and shattered mirrors, where he trained with iron discipline. There, amidst the familiar smell of sweat and worn rubber, he became the silent warrior again, the one who had learned to tame his body and mind, to transform fear into strength, anger into control.
One autumn evening, as the light outside the faded vein de large, grimy windows, a hesitant figure crossed the threshold.
It was Leah, a young girl from the neighborhood, her eyes still a little red, her gait trembling with hesitation mixed with hope. She approached slowly, her gaze shining with sincere shyness. "I wanted to thank you," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "That night, after what happened, you made me want to get back into sports. To stop being afraid." Adrian, surprised, lowered the gloves he was still holding and offered her a sincere, warm smile. It was the first time he fully realized that his fight had gone beyond mere self-defense, that he had sown a seed in the hearts of those around him. "You know," he replied softly, "it's not just me. It's the strength to not let yourself be crushed, to keep moving forward even when everything seems against you. You can find it too." Leah nodded, as if these words gave her new courage. In the weeks that followed, others came, attracted by this calm but powerful presence, by the example of Adrian, who embodied more than just physical strength, an inner strength, a hope. Yesterday's novice had become a pillar of his community, a beacon for lost youth and hesitant souls. Not through violence or threats, but through self-control, determination, and respect. What had started as a simple fight in a dark alley had turned into a quiet revolution, a metamorphosis that, night after night, changed not just one man, but an entire city, making it a little stronger, a little more united.